Hello and welcome to We Live in a Society, and welcome to my third video discussing the cultural differences between France and Australia. Today I'll be talking about some things that may shock you or surprise you about living in France. So one of the biggest differences here in France compared to living in Australia is how you would greet someone. So in Australia, if I was being introduced, and now I'm not talking about like family and friends, I'm talking about if you went to a party or some other social situation where you were being introduced to somebody that you didn't necessarily know or haven't met before, like the friend of a friend or a friend's work colleague, something like that. In Australia, I would go up to them, hello, nice to meet you, my name's Chantal. None of this kissing bullshit that's synonymous with France. In France, they have the Bise, which is an integral part of the French greeting culture. And it's essentially air kissing the cheek of the person you're being introduced to. More often than not, a real kiss. But how many kisses? What side of the face you start on differs between regions, between villages, so you're never quite sure how to go about this Bise business. And it also not only depends on that, it depends on your relationship to the other person. Are you family? Are you close friends? Are you acquaintances? Are you colleagues? Is this a social situation? Is this a work situation? Are they complete strangers? Or it's so complicating. And like, I don't know how many times I've went to kiss hello somebody and you know, what side do you start on? Because if you both start on the same side, you're fucked, right? I don't know how many times I've kissed someone square in the mouth or headbutted them in an attempt to negotiate this Bise business here in France. And to be honest, I think I have kissed more people in the last 2 years in France than I have my entire life in Australia before. And so just an example of this, I went to a party. So I didn't know any of the people there. They were my friends and work colleagues. I went to this party, so everybody was pretty much complete strangers. And you walk into the room. Now in Australia, if this was a party or a barbecue, you'd walk in, you'd collectively say hello to everybody. Hey everyone, you'd grab a beer, you'd go about your business. Not in France. So as we walked in, we had to Bise every single person in the room, sequentially, one by one. And it was a 3 Bise kiss. It took so long. And then every time a new person would enter the room, we had to go through this whole procedure again. And then when we left, same thing. It's such a bizarre tradition. Giant square pillows. I'll just show you. They are not at a dimension that facilitates a comfortable night's sleep. I don't see the functional advantage over this giant square pillow compared to your rectangular ones. You can't even like fold them in half because they've got too much shit in them. Like it's just, I don't understand the abomination that is the giant square pillows here in France. So another thing, what are with the shower heads here in France? Every single shower head is detachable, which I can see is a great convenience, but bearing in mind most of the time the bracket that holds the shower head nozzle is usually loose or faulty or non-existent, so you can't actually place the nozzle back into the bracket while you're going about showering. So half the time you have to sit there and try and wash your body with one hand, holding the nozzle in the other, try not to spray yourself in the face or spray water all around the room. Like, I just don't understand why you can't have a shower head that's attached. I understand, you know, in the bath showers, but this is not in the bath showers. This is just in a regular shower. You know, like I know France sort of have a history with beheading things, so maybe, but like I just don't understand why all the nozzles are detachable. So speaking of showers, what is it with conditioner here? So when I first moved here, I went in search of conditioner. I have thick horsehair that needs a lot of conditioner. I could not find conditioner anywhere. And typing conditioner into Google Translate or DeepL or some other language translation program does not yield any results. And that was because I realized the French don't actually have a word for conditioner. It's called après shampoo. So like after shampoo. So yeah, so this whole time I've been looking for conditioner, and when I saw, you know, shampoo written on the bottle, I just assumed it was shampoo. And until I became more familiar with the language, I realized, oh, hold on a minute, after shampoo, mayhaps that might be conditioner. So yeah, it took a long time and really months and months of bad hair days before I actually discovered the conditioner here in France. So another thing that may surprise or shock you about living in France, especially in this day and age, is just how many people smoke. So many people smoke here, and you just have to deal with it. It's unavoidable. You cannot avoid it. If you like fresh, clean air, do not come and live in France. It's very difficult. I frequently choke my way down the street that's lined with little cafes full of people having their morning coffee and a couple of cigarettes, or their 2-hour lunch with a couple of cigarettes after every course. But yeah, it's really bad here, but it's just completely unavoidable. And yes, like most people, try not to smoke inside, but they still do. And most cafes in France have a lot of outdoor seating and not so much indoor seating. So it's really unavoidable. It just filters through it. It permeates everything. Yeah, there's so much smoke. So that's one thing that may surprise you about coming to live in France. So I'm 2 years now into my French adventure, and I'm still finding it hard to adjust to some of the cultural differences that I've experienced since I've arrived here in France compared to Australia. And so one of the things that may shock you when you come to France is the business hours. So between 12 and 2, everything shuts down. Everything, except cafes and restaurants, because they're obviously open for the 2-hour French lunch. But between the hours of 12 to 2, everything's shut down. All businesses, services like post office and banks, everything shuts down. And it's funny because sometimes I've been walking back from lunch or something, and I'll go past a post office and it's like 1:55 p.m. and there will be a line of like 20 people waiting for this post office to open so that they can pick up their packages or send their letters before they have to be back at work at 2. But yeah, it's quite inconvenient because if you work long hours, like I usually am in the lab from like 8 o'clock and sometimes work till 6:37. So like if I can't go at lunchtime to do things that I need to do, it's very difficult to do them otherwise. So yeah, it's taken a little bit of adjustment to get used to those work hours. But one thing I do love here in France is that everything stays open really late. So they might shut for that 2-hour window, but like all the services, like banks and post offices, they stay open to about 7, sometimes even 8. And a lot of other businesses, electronic stores, clothing stores, everything like that, they usually stay open till like 10 p.m. So it's great because in Australia, 5 o'clock everything's shut down. It's ghost town from 5 o'clock. So I do love that because I can come home from work and stop at the boulangerie and get a baguette on my way home from work at like 7 p.m. So yeah, I do love that. But here in France, all the restaurants, so they close at 3. So they open at like 12 for the lunch period and close at about 3. And then they don't open up again until about 7 p.m. And so I, back in Australia, would have my dinner around 7 p.m. But you can't do that here in France. Dinners are usually 9, 10 o'clock at night. So that's taken a lot of adjusting to. So another thing that you might find strange or shock you when you come to France is that nothing is open on Sundays. Everything's shut. And sometimes, services like banks and post office, they're closed Mondays too. So yeah, Sunday, everything's shut. That was a big adjustment, getting used to that. And like in the touristy areas, places stay open, but in the towns and where I live, 90% of businesses and all the services, they're all closed Sundays. So yeah, that took a bit of adjusting to get used to that. Especially if after a long working week, Saturday you like to go out, but if you then forget to do your grocery shopping and you wake up Sunday morning and realize you have no food, you can't just go to the supermarket or go to the markets because they're not open on Sundays. And so, you're fucked. You starve for the weekend. I've solved that problem by getting home deliveries now, but still, it does take it's a bit of an inconvenience and it does take a little while to get used to that. Okay, so I guess what started off as an inconvenience has now actually become quite good that Sundays are family days because it forces you to relax on the Sunday. It forces you to do nothing. There's nothing open. It forces you to just go and have picnics and be social with your friends in parks and outdoor areas and have barbecues and go running by the river or jogging in the park. So yes, it's kind of been a blessing in disguise really that everything shuts down on Sundays. But it can take a little bit of getting used to at the start.